A couple weeks ago we established what the best Yari infantry units in Shogun 2 are, so let's move on to the next category. Hi, my name is Mr. Smartdonkey and welcome to the top 7 bow infantry units in Shogun 2. Before we get started, I want to once again mention that this list is as always based mostly on my experiences in legendary difficulty single player campaigns, and thus I would not recommend using this list as a guideline for multiplayer. For this list I judge units on their overall performance. Factors include, but are not limited to, cost, building requirements and campaign limitations. Finally, before we get started with this list, we'll have a look at the contestants. The bow infantry unit pool is made up of 7 units, 4 of which are available in the vanilla based game. These are Bow Ashigaru, Bow Samurai, Bow Warrior Monks and the Bow Hero. The other 3 were added in through DLC. These are Bandits, Bow Ronin and Daikyu Samurai. These units are exclusive to the Hattori, Ikuiki and Chosukabe respectively. Now that you've seen the contestants, feel free to leave a comment with your predictions. I'd love to see what you guys think. Now, without any further ado, let's get into the list. Starting us off at number 7 are the Bandits. I must admit, when I made my top 15 unique units list a long time ago, I really hadn't used this unit all that much. I tested it enough to know it wasn't very good, but I didn't really know all the ins and outs of it. Now that I've done the stealth units only challenge with the Hattori, I have a much better beat on them, and I'd leave them exactly where I placed them on that list, at number 14. That's not to say Hattori Bandits are completely hopeless. There's actually a few situations where this unit is quite alright. For starters, they have Kisho training, which gives them the ability to deploy outside of the deployment zone. This is a trait I generally don't put too much value on, as I don't like splitting units off from my main force unless they are cavalry. In the Bandits' case though, they can hide almost anywhere, and also have the ability to fire whilst hidden, which means they can harass the enemy with almost no risk of retaliation if used properly. All this sounds pretty good, but I didn't place them this low on the list for nothing. For starters, they are straight up the worst archer unit on this list. Due to their lower numbers, even Bow Ashigaru can beat them in a 1v1, so if you don't get the chance to harass the enemy and are thrown into a regular battle, they perform horribly. Combine that with their higher upkeep and absurd recruitment requirements, and you'll understand why I don't rate this unit very highly. Moving on to number 6, where I've placed Bow Ronin. As usual with the Ronin units, they are comparable to Samurai units. In this case, Bow Ronin have a whopping 5 more reload skill compared to Bow Samurai at the cost of 20 less men. This makes them quite a bit worse in comparison, and not a very appealing option, especially considering the Ikuiki's other bow infantry options. For starters, the Ikuiki Bow Ashigaru are better than regular Bow Ashigaru, and you might have noticed Bow Ashigaru haven't appeared yet, meaning I rate them higher than Bow Ronin to begin with. More importantly however, the Ikuiki Bow Warrior Monks are better than regular Bow Warrior Monks too, and spoiler alert, you won't see them on this list for a while longer. What this means is that you've got a unit that is essentially outclassed by all other options, which makes Yari Ronin almost obsolete. Coming in at number 5 is the Bow Hero. To be honest with you, I had a hard time not placing this unit lower on the list, and initially I had actually done so, but after giving it some more thought, I changed my mind. Compared to most other bow units on this list, the Bow Hero isn't really all that amazing. Due to their small numbers, they lose 2.5% of their effectiveness for every single man they lose. And as archer units are purely aggressive units, losing effectiveness quickly is the last thing you want. If you could choose between having a single guy with 1,000 arrows kill the enemy over a very long time, or 1,000 men each with 1 arrow killing the enemy in an instant, I know what I'd choose. Obviously this is an exaggeration and not an entirely fair comparison, but you get my point. They might have amazing stats, but because of their low numbers they kill quite slowly and every man they lose hurts. This is why I don't really like hero units in general. But it's even more evident with the Bow Hero because they die so quickly to enemy fire, whereas melee hero units take absolutely forever to die in melee. Which brings us to why I didn't put this unit lower on the list, and that's their range. The Bow Hero is essentially a mini artillery piece. It might not automatically make the enemy attack you even when you're the attacker like an artillery piece does, but it lets you pick off their bow units without retaliation, and if they do retaliate, you just back off and wait for the enemy to give up chasing you. This means that in certain battles this unit is fantastic, but in most battles it's below average, hence the number 5 spot. At number 4 I have placed Bow Ashigaru. When making this list I wasn't quite sure where to place Bow Ashigaru. They're a unit that almost everyone uses at the start of the campaign, so they could be seen as essential to success, and that counts for a lot. Just look at Yari Ashigaru, they're the only melee Ashigaru unit for 11 of the 12 clans, and while technically you could skip past them and go for Samurai right away, you'd be a fool to do so. They are the key to success in the early game. Bow Ashigaru aren't really at that same level though. There's no argument that they're useful early on, but once the enemy switches to Samurai, your Bow Ashigaru starts struggling, whereas Yari Ashigaru still perform fantastically. When compared to the other units on this list, in a 1v1 they are of course one of the worst, but that's also where you'd expect they'd be. They don't do anything special. They serve their role in the early game and then get replaced by a better unit. They're perfectly balanced. It's not their fault that their counterpart Yari Ashigaru overperforms so much that they're still a valid choice in the late game. Bow Ashigaru just do their job and that's that. Nothing wrong with that. That brings us to the top 3, starting with Bow Samurai. Funny enough, I usually skip straight over this unit from Bow Ashigaru to Bow Warrior Monks, but I'll freely admit I'm a bit biased towards Bow Warrior Monks as they're among my favorite units in the game. For the purposes of this list though, I want to remain fair, hence I placed the Bow Samurai here. I'd have personally placed him below Bow Ashigaru, but I know some of you would have been screaming for my head if I did that, so here we are. In all fairness though, Bow Samurai is a solid unit. They perform excellently in the early game against scarcely armored Ashigaru units, and they still perform well enough in the mid to late game against more heavily armored Samurai units. They're easy to recruit and not wildly expensive. They do everything a Bow Ashigaru does, but better. They have a little more armor which protects them from enemy archers, and they can even hold their own decently in melee should the need arise. They're not particularly exciting, but exciting isn't always good. Sometimes boring will do the job just fine. On to number 2, where I have placed Daikyu Samurai. Similar to the bandits, this is a unit I never really used until I did a campaign focused on them, in this case the bow only challenge with the Chosukabe. A lot of people actually say this is the best bow infantry unit in the game. Personally I disagree, but I can also see why people say so. First of all, Daikyu Samurai are a lot cheaper than Bow Warrior Monks. They have the same increased range of 175, and they even have double the armor, which makes them much better in those archer versus archer battles. However, archer versus archer battles don't happen very often in single player. The AI is generally not smart enough to focus your range units down, and when comparing straight up firepower you can see that the Daikyu Samurai have to take a bow to their superiors. It is worth mentioning however that if you're playing as the Chosukabe, it is quite a bit easier to recruit Daikyu Samurai than Bow Warrior Monks, and not much harder than Bow Samurai. So between Bow Samurai and Daikyu Samurai the choice is obvious, and even when Bow Warrior Monks become available you could easily field both, with Daikyu Samurai up front to tank the enemy's arrows should they choose to fire at you, and Bow Warrior Monks behind them for the added firepower. Finally at number 1 I have of course placed Bow Warrior Monks. I mentioned them a few times throughout this list already, and they are without a shadow of a doubt the best bow infantry unit in the game. Their stats are absolutely phenomenal. In a campaign you can get their accuracy above 100 without too much effort, which is absolutely incredible. They fire fast, do a ridiculous amount of damage for each volley, and have increased range of 175 to boot, meaning they outrange almost everything in the game bar heroes and artillery. They have whistling arrows, which is definitely an undervalued ability which can single-handedly rout armies if used at the right time. Another thing that doesn't get mentioned enough is that there are 3 different clans that get increased stats for their Bow Warrior Monks: Chosukabe, Waisugi and Ikuiki, of which the first 2 also benefit from decreased upkeep. This is not something I really rate the unit on, but in this case it's a quarter of all clans, so I found it at least worth mentioning. Bow Warrior Monks are of course among the most expensive units in the game, but in my opinion they are more than worth it. Whenever I have these in an army, I never feel threatened by anything. That's the kind of impression they make. That's gonna do it for the top 7 bow infantry units. Let me know what you think of my list and tell me which category you'd like to see covered next. Get warm during the winter with some Mr. Smardonkey merchandise. If you enjoy these types of videos, please consider supporting me on Patreon. It really helps me a lot. You'll find all the relative links in the description. Thank you very much for watching, hope you've enjoyed, have a good day, and goodbye!